I'm going to show you the Behringer HA400 headphone amplifier and why you're going to love it for your podcasting. Welcome to the Audacity to Podcast, an award-winning how-to podcast about podcasting and using Audacity. Hi, I'm Daniel J. Lewis from the AudacityToPodcast.com. Podcasting is a lot of fun, especially if you're doing it with other people, like your co-hosts or guests. But there's something very important that I highly recommend. Not only should everyone have their own microphone, but every person who is on your podcast should also have their own headphones too. That way they can hear what you're hearing, they can hear themselves. They can also hear certain things, like if they bump the microphone and they'll know, oh, don't bump the microphone because that's what it sounds like in the recording. They'll be able to hear what other noises are being picked up by the microphones. And especially if you play any kind of audio into your podcast while you're recording, videos, sound effects, intros, outros, voicemails, or even live telephone or Skype calls, your co-host will be able to hear it if they're wearing a pair of headphones. And splitting a headphone signal is really easy because you can get these little devices from Walmart. This is a simple headphone splitter. That makes it very easy. It's a stereo 3.5 millimeter connection on one end, male connection, and then on the other end, two stereo 3.5 millimeter connections. And this is not splitting into left and right. This is splitting your one signal into duplicates of the same signal. So two stereo outputs from this headphone splitter. That works all right. You can plug this into a computer, into a mixer with a little adapter, and you can do that then and connect to two pairs of headphones for two guests. What if you've got more than two people on your podcast? Maybe you've got three people. Then you could look at something like this. This is a Belkin headphone splitter that is about $5 to $10. Again, it's stereo 3.5 millimeter on one end and five stereo 3.5 millimeter female outlets on the other end. And you can plug in then 5 pairs of headphones into this. But there's an inherent flaw with something like this. The more headphones that you plug into this, the lower the signal gets for everybody. So if you plug in one device to this, you'll hear something at reasonable volume. But then if you plug in 5 different headphones into this, then everyone will hear everything a lot quieter. But there's a basic problem with both of these things, and that is that you and your guests probably have different kinds of microphones, maybe even different kinds of, more importantly, headphones. In this case, you might be listening to the podcast that you're recording through something as simple as the Apple EarPods or earbuds or something like that, some kind of in-ear headset. You could be using some cheap over-the-head kind of headphones, can style maybe. This is a really, really cheap pair, maybe $10 for this cheap pair, but it works. Or you could be even using some kind of professional level grade headphones for yourself, but maybe your co-hosts are using something completely different. All of these different kinds of headphones amplify the volume in completely different ways. So while you might be able to hear everything beautifully, your co-hosts, on the other hand, might be either trying to prevent their ears from bleeding because you're way too loud, or they think they're going deaf and crazy because they cannot hear you or anything else going on. That's why I recommend the Behringer HA400 headphone amplifier. It's only about $20 for this, and I'll have links below this video, or you can go to theaudacitytopodcast.com/HA400. The Behringer HA400 is a headphone amplifier. It doesn't just split the signal like this. Because if you're using something like a Belkin splitter like this, it's splitting the signal, and each time it gets split, it loses some of its amplification or its volume. But this is a headphone amplifier. So the more headphones you plug into this, doesn't matter. It does not lower the volume of everyone else for every headphone that you plug in. Now this is really easy to connect to your mixer or your computer. The back of this has all 1/4-inch jacks, and they are stereo jacks, so you'd be able to get that full stereo separation if you're using that kind of thing. But what I'd recommend for connecting this to your mixer is get one of these professional grade cables. This is a 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch male to male stereo or tip ring sleeve connection. And this is an amazing cable. It's a 6-foot long cable, very, very high quality, and only a few dollars for this cable. Much cheaper than if you go to Walmart. Well, Walmart's not going to sell a cable like this, but much cheaper than if you go to Guitar Center or any local kind of music or audio store. This is from Monoprice, which you can check out through my affiliate link, the audacitytopodcast.com/monoprice. That's MONOPRICE. And I'll have links below this video and at the show notes. But this is a very high quality cable that you can then just plug in one end to your mixer and then connect to the other end to the input of the HA400. This then gives you the signal that goes out to all of the other headphones. Now, because you're working with many different kinds of headphones, you could be using professional headphones, you could be using cheap headphones, you could be using earbuds. You might want to consider picking up several of these little converter or adapters. These are 3.5 millimeter to 1/4 inch adapters, and they're stereo on both ends. And this then plugs straight into your Behringer HA400. And then no matter what kind of pair of headphones someone has, they can plug into this. If they're using something that has a 3.5 millimeter plug, then you just plug it into the adapter, plug the adapter into the HA400, and then they get their signal that way. Or if they've got professional level headphones, then they could plug that straight into the HA400 and it won't be a problem. The HA400 does also use an AC power adapter, so make sure that you've got an extra power outlet near where you are. But the most amazing ability that this gives is that every person has their own volume control. So if you're using professional headphones that let you hear everything really well, then you can set your volume down a little bit lower wherever you want it to be. But if someone else maybe has a hearing problem, or maybe they just don't have really good headphones, doesn't amplify the signal very well, then they could turn up their volume. And especially if this is in reach of your co-host, this gives them the ability to turn up and down their volume as they need while you're recording your podcast. Maybe you play a sound effect or some music that's a bit loud to them so they can turn their volume down. Not a problem. So I do recommend that you keep this in reach of either yourself or your co-host. If it is one person that has reach of this, then make sure you set up some kinds of hand signals. Like you could point to your ear and say, turn it up a little, turn it down a little, and then they can adjust your volume for that, because everyone has their own volume through 4 different volume knobs for the 4 different outputs from this headphone amplifier. Or you could put this somewhere where everyone can get to it and be able to just easily adjust their own volume control for their headphones. Now, in my podcast studio here, I happen to be right now sitting in one of the chairs that one of my co-hosts would be sitting in. Another one of my co-hosts might be sitting here to my left, and I would be sitting across from this desk at my special studio control room booth areas where I have full control over all the stuff that goes on with the podcast. And I put this headphone amplifier right between my co-hosts so that then they're close enough that they can plug their headphones straight into this. They don't need extension cables or anything. They can reach over and adjust their headphone volume as they need to. But I'm on the other side of the table, so you may want to consider getting a headphone extension cable. This is a 3.5 millimeter stereo headphone extension cable. You can get these really cheaply at Walmart, just a few dollars for these, or you could get something much higher quality by going to Monoprice. And this will give you just the ability to plug in one end to the amplifier, the other end plugs into your headphones, or your headphones plug into it, and then you've got that extra reach. This is what I use when I'm sitting across from the desk. That way I'm not having to lean forward all the time because my headphone cable won't reach, but I've got plenty of space. I don't have volume control of myself, but that's okay because either I'm satisfied with where my volume is, or I might just signal to one of my co-hosts and say, hey, turn it up, turn it down. I can't hear myself. So the Behringer HA400 is a fantastic device that then gives you and your co-host that ability to hear yourself just how you want to hear yourself, with just the right volume. You can connect this to your mixer with something like the 1/4-inch cable I showed you from Monoprice, or you could even connect this to a computer and be able to split out your output signals that way. Whatever you're using, I do highly recommend the Behringer HA400 headphone amplifier. It's only about $20 from Amazon or B&H, and you can get those links just below this video or at theaudacitytopodcast.com/HA400. And if you get this thing and your co-hosts have headphones, I think they're gonna love you for this because they'll have their own volume control over what they're hearing. Get the links to this and the other stuff that I mentioned, like the Monoprice cables and some of these other accessories I pointed out, by going to theaudacitytopodcast.com/HA400. And if you need help learning how to podcast, then please let me know. I offer consulting services to help you podcast like a professional. You can go to theaudacitytopodcast.com/consulting to request a consulting appointment. And if you enjoyed this content and benefited from it, then please subscribe. You can subscribe on YouTube, you can subscribe through iTunes to the video edition of this podcast, or even go to subscribe to my separate audio edition of the Audacity to Podcast, where I release weekly episodes teaching you how to podcast with passion, organization, and dialogue. So, as I say, now that I've given you some of the guts and taught you some of the tools, it's time for you to go podcast with passion, organization, and dialogue. I'm Daniel J. Lewis. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheRamenNoodle. Thank you for watching.